I think that what makes ASU online master's programs unique are several things. First off, they're exactly the same master's programs in terms of content, outcome, and objectives that we teach our on-ground students. Number two, there are master's programs coming out of a Research One faculty, and therefore the faculty influence on the development of the programs is incredibly important. We're incorporating in the master's programs the most current thinking in every discipline rather than what somebody thought 5 or 8 or 10 years ago, the way you'd get if somebody's teaching out of a textbook. The other thing I'd mention is that every student, every master's student at ASU is going to be assigned a success coach that will follow them throughout their academic career. And that success coach is specifically focused on ensuring that the student gets through the non-academic pieces of a university that can be so difficult to follow. We know that universities are complicated places. The success coach is designed to make you more successful. Leah, anything to add?
Yeah, I think one more thing I would add in terms of making our programs unique is the students' engagement themselves, the ability for them to engage as a community together, the ability for them to stay engaged when they become alumni, the amount of corporate connections that they can make being part of such a wonderful alumni group through ASU. So I think the students themselves come together in a different, engaging way at ASU that allows them for a lifelong time of success.
ASU makes up for the lack of face-to-face interaction in a couple of ways. And actually, one of the first things that our faculty notice when they begin teaching online is that the discussion boards that are available in an online class actually make it possible for students to provide better answers to questions than they can often in a face-to-face class. Interaction in a face-to-face class, I always say, rewards two types of individuals. An individual has to be somewhat aggressive and they have to be quick-witted. But in an online class, I, for example, am the type of person that when I walk out of a room, I'm always saying, I should have said that. And in an online classroom, the student actually has time to think about a response, formulate a response to a question, and then write a reasoned response. And so the discussion boards and the interaction in an online class are often, the faculty often think that they are at a higher quality than they are in a face-to-face classroom.
I definitely agree. I think the engagement when you're in an online environment allows for a more thoughtful response and for everyone to be included versus in that moment in a classroom that allows for a student to be able to not only connect with the instructor, but every other student in a more personalized way.
One other thing is we're starting to incorporate a lot of tools that allow students to interact not just on the discussion boards, and maybe you'll talk about Pitch in a moment, but Pitch is another tool that we've developed that allows students to interact outside the classroom. And by the way, every classroom has an area called hallway conversations, and hallway conversations is meant to replicate that time either right before a class or right after a class when students are discussing what occurred inside the class. And that's usually monitored just by the students. If something is important enough, the conversation can be rise up to the faculty member for a response. But we also have that hallway conversations area of every class.
These degrees are based on the same curriculum, the same faculty, the same rigor, the same outcomes and measurements of every single course are met through the online mechanism as they would be in the classroom. And the degree is the exact same degree awarded on the student's transcript and their diploma as a student who would be receiving it in a traditional classroom setting.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that last point. When you get a transcript, when you go through an online program and you get a transcript from ASU, it doesn't say that you received this program online. It says that you got a master's degree in education or a master's degree in education or a master's of business administration, because the content was the same. The only thing that was different was the modality in which you earned it.
By I think ASU has such a multifaceted relationship with Ghurair Foundation for Education because at our core, we are seeking to help students who wouldn't otherwise have access to education and looking at ways to find students be more successful and have access to a high quality education to advance the community that they're a part of. And the way Ghurair has embraced education in an area that hasn't had as much nonprofit effort put into it, and the ability for ASU to recognize the scale and the magnitude at which they could reach across all 22 Arab countries makes us a good match to really do the right kinds of outreach and the right kinds of educational opportunities for this particular set of students.
So interestingly, assessment online occurs somewhat differently than it occurs face-to-face, and there are a bunch of reasons for that. First off, the courses are compressed, so they occur in a 7.5-week setting. And one thing we know from a lot of educational theory is it's much better to have a set of assessments that occur regularly that actually help the students improve their skills than it is to have 1 or 2 midterms and a final in the class. And so one thing we try and do in online classes is in a 7.5-week session, you may have 20 assignments, and each assignment does not count as much, but they sum up to 100% and they sum up to your grade. The idea is with each small assignment, you learn about something that will actually help you in the next portion of the class. Often what happens with high stakes exams is that you find out that you got a C on the exam and then you move on to the next topic, and you don't really have time to learn from taking that test in any important way. When we do have high stakes exams, they're very carefully monitored so that we know that the person at the computer that's taking the exam is actually the person enrolled in the class. And the technology behind our ability to ensure that is increasing all the time. There are tools that we have at our disposal now that simply weren't available 5 years, and they'll continue to get better and better and better.
And the assessment in the classroom, obviously keeping it in incremental ways so students can learn and build upon a foundation of knowledge. But we also offer some unique assessment opportunities for students outside the classroom that allow them to learn about themselves and what is unique and their strengths to be able to do better in the classroom by giving them individual personality assessments that help us customize study plans, how to manage better study habits around their schedule based off of strengths and characteristics they already possess so that they can be successful in the program as a whole, in addition to how we use unique ways to assess the knowledge and the content gained within a classroom setting. We have very high retention and graduation rates for our graduate programs. In some of our graduate programs, we are in the high 90 percentile, and in a couple cases, even higher, because our programs are built for students to be successful and to work with one another for success. And ASU also has a very rigorous admission process. So we know that the students who are entering those programs will be given the right tools to be successful, as well as a foundational set of skills they bring to the table to begin with.
For us, success is having the student earn the degree that they applied for and were admitted to. And if they take 2 or 3 or 4 classes and quit, that's a failure for us. And so we work very, very hard on completion. And at the master's level, where you're typically talking about 10 courses in the master's program, we work very hard on ensuring that the student is ready for the next course, enrolled in the next course, and is successful in the next course. So I'll give a little background. I think the skills and abilities that students need to be successful in online programming is slightly different than what it might be in a face-to-face class. The first thing that a student needs to bring to the table is a maturity and a discipline. There's not anybody who's going to tell you that now it's time to go to class. There's not anybody who's going to take attendance in the online classroom. And so going to an online program really requires a type of maturity and discipline that might not be necessary for a face-to-face class. Other than that, the skills that are necessary, the intellectual skills that are necessary to get through a class are very, very similar because, as I said, or we said earlier, the content of the courses is the same. The assessments are going to sum to being, assessing the same set of learning objectives and outcomes. And if you have those inherent skills and abilities to get through a program with a certain measure of discipline, you'll be fine in an online setting.
Yeah, I think because we're talking about master's degrees, you always want to talk about, you of course have to come with a foundational set of knowledge that was earned through your bachelor's degree, which is assessed through your transcripts at time of admission. But beyond that, as an individual, I think as Phil was talking about, it comes down to mindset. You have to be willing to put in the work it takes to complete all of the coursework. And it's going to be hard, but we have people who will help you in terms of learning new study skills specific to online settings, how to manage your time to ensure you're going to the virtual classroom versus to a classroom. So I think it's really coming down to mindset and the engagement of the student. And if they have that drive, they will be successful.
There's one last thing I'd say is, our classes are 7.5 weeks long. Normal classes at an American university are 15 or 16 weeks long. It's actually very motivating to know when you get into a difficult class that you're going to be done in 5 or 6 weeks. Whatever the difficulty is it's going to be done in 5 or 6 weeks, and then you can go on to something else. As opposed to, I have 3 more months to look at this class. And so I do think that our courses are also made to make you more successful from a mindset perspective.
Exactly.
No, most people have never studied online before. It's a relatively new modality that didn't exist 15 years ago, or it wasn't very well formed 15 years ago. And so, but at the same time, hundreds of thousands of people are now learning online. As I said, it's going to take a little bit of orientation, and we have the orientation sessions ready to make you successful to be a good online student. And our success coaches, if you're having difficulty of any sort, the success coaches can help you out as well. And so I think that once you get 1 week into the first course, you'll understand what it's about. You'll understand that you can be successful in the course. And after that, online will seem as natural as going to a classroom.
I always like to give this as a parallel of, if you've never studied online, you have to look at how much of your life is online. And I always like to give people the example of, in your day-to-day work, you're always going to be online, and you have to learn to work in a global setting. And so if you have that mindset, you know how to do your email, you know how to engage with people in another way. Online studying is no different. You have to be able to engage with people through systems. That's all the social medias and everything else. And so learning to discipline yourself and go through the studies online might be different, but the actual modality of online isn't going to be something that, if you haven't done it before, you won't be successful in.
And the other thing is, one last thing I'd say is, you might regard it as a challenge, but you also need to regard it as an opportunity, because the fact is, most professional education in the future will be delivered online. Most master's programs in the future, you'll be able to access so much more if you have mastered the art of learning online than if you simply shy away from it and insist on going to a face-to-face classroom. It opens up all kinds of new opportunities and new horizons that insisting on staying in a face-to-face classroom, you'd find very limiting.
For learning and working.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
No workplace do you just go to an office and do the work. There's so much interaction through online tools that learning that online will help you later on in life as well.
Exactly.
I think one thing is, culturally, in all of the Arab countries, online is becoming more prevalent. And I think it is a new trend, and it is something new. And so you're going to be on the forefront of that. An Arab student is going to be one of the first ones to show how they were able to advance their education through a new opportunity and new set of programs through a very high quality institution, and then be able to help the next generation or the next people open up the horizons of what can be done with your education and to be able to advance your studies. So I think sometimes it's just knowing that you're some of the first ones. You're some of the first ones to be able to go forward with a full online degree within that particular region. But I think in the end, it's going to be something that many people are going to be looking to. And so it's taking that dive and that risk to begin with is something that they will be setting a trend for future students.
Yeah, I think the one thing I might say is have fun and open your mind to the possibilities that are available to you once you master going to an online class. I think it's something that is very common at this point in the U.S. It will spread because it is a medium that knows no boundaries and where we can meet demand in ways that we can't meet with regular, face-to-face or brick-and-mortar institutions. So have fun, enjoy it, enjoy the opportunity.
Within the Arab countries, recognition of online degrees is just now coming about, and ASU has been partnering with the Knowledge and Human Development Authority within Dubai to help recognize these online programs and the rigor that they take, similar to a campus-based or a classroom-based setting. So it is something that is being recognized across all different areas, and many partners like KHDA understand the value it's going to bring to changing education, opening up more opportunities for individuals.